من يجيب العبد أبدى السوء أوارا ومن يجزي على المعروف جنات وأنهارا.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. Welcome everyone. As you all know, lots of things are happening in Bangladesh, and I'm going to try in the next hour, inshallah, shed some light on things that I've learnt in my life about Bangladesh, but also about the history of the region. It's going to be completely impossible and unrealistic to try cover the history of Bangladesh in like half an hour to 40 minutes. But what I want to do is give you a chronological idea of what Bangladesh is, how it came into being, some of the key players and key factors around Bangladesh from before the British Raj, during the Pakistan era, then the East Pakistan era, and then the War of Independence, and then what followed after 1971, and what's happening today. I know that today's halaqah has been titled Islam and Secularism, but it's more to give you an understanding of it's not one issue or one problem that people of Bangladesh face, and it's not as simplistic as some of our own relatives, some of our own friends, the understandings they have to the problems we're facing in Bangladesh. I'm going to share a lot of my own personal views with you. Some of you may not agree. I know a lot of people outside won't agree because opinion in Bangladesh is really polarized. So people just are either with us, with or against a particular opinion, which is really strange, and nobody's really willing to look at things, both academically and also in a fair and unbiased way, that look, how did this happen? Why are these things happening? People are really emotional in Bangladesh. And I think that emotion, that simple emotion of the people of Bengal, has always been exploited. And one of the things I want to highlight is the type of people that have led the Muslims of India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, their origins, what they want, and the simple common folk, the things that they fought for and what they wanted. And inshallah, in the short lecture, you'll see that even the founding fathers of Bangladesh are probably dismayed and surprised at what's going on in their name today. So I'm going to start with, I'll share some videos and things with you afterwards, just to give you an idea of exactly what I mean, and then you'll understand that how can these things happen. And in the age and culture that we live in now, post 9/11, some of these things are completely like alien to us. How can somebody who's cold-bloodedly killed a leader of a country and his whole family boldly open his chest and brag about what they've done and say, yeah, we did it, we killed him, so what? You know, this is what happened after the founding of Bangladesh, and it's killing after killing. And it's similar in Pakistan, current day Pakistan. So I'm going to start with the early history of the current lands that are known as like West and East Bengal, India. Bengal is a big region, but it's been divided. First it was divided in 1905 into two parts, but it was reunited again in 1911. But in 1947, Bengal was divided into East and West Bengal. The very early history starts around 1000 BC to around 1200 AD, and that's, you know, the very early people that habitated those lands were known as Bang, the Bang people. There was different names used for them: Vanga, Banga, Bangala, Bengal, and Bengal finally. There was the Mauryan Empire around 320 to 180 BC. Then there's finally there was the Hindu empire, the Sinas, and there was also some Orthodox and militant Hindus that replaced the Buddhists. These were the last people, non-Muslims, to rule Bengal. And then Bengal was ruled by Turks funny enough, for a long time. And it was Mahmud of Ghazni in 1000 AD. They started attacking that area. It took them about almost 200 years to kind of completely establish rule over Bengal. This is different to other parts of India. This is different to Sindh, Karachi, where Pakistan is today. We're talking about Bengal. And the Turks ruled Bengal for about 12, 13, 14, about 300-400 years, until the Mughal Emperor Akbar the Great. The Mughals were half Turkish, half Mongolian anyway. They took over Bengal. And then we had the Mughal era. They ruled India for almost, 700 years, various parts and stuff, until 1757. And it's a really, really interesting time in Bengal. 1757 was the time that Clive, the British commander, took on Siraj ud-Dawla in Battle of Plassey, as you know, and defeated him. And the only way Clive could defeat him, there was a lot of treachery that went on. Clive knew that Siraj ud-Dawla wasn't a great ruler. I know Bengals champion him, and it's a great name amongst Bangladeshi people. And he was the last man standing in terms of fighting the British East India Company. After Siraj ud-Dawla's kingdom fell, the East India Company pretty much took over most of India. And this where the British Raj in India started. And Siraj's commander-in-chief, and somebody he sought help from, was a guy called Mir Jafar. And if most of you, I'm hoping, are of Bengali origin, but if you're of Bengali origin, if you call somebody in Bengali Mir Jafar, it's the worst kind of insult that you can call somebody. You can swear at somebody's mum and dad, you can swear at whatever that you want, but in Bengali culture, if you call somebody Mir Jafar, you've kind of crossed that line, because that's the ultimate insult. And there was great titles people gave to him afterwards. And Mir Jafar then became the ruler of Bengal with the support of the British Raj. Because as you know, if any of you know about the British Raj, the Raj ruled with little kingdoms and small empires that people had. Like you had the Nizams and you had the Maharajas, and they all exploited their own people and paid taxes to the British Raj. And that's a whole different story. But what's really interesting for me, that kind of hurt me when I learned that the first president of Pakistan, and this is East and West Pakistan, after formation, was a guy called Iskandar Mirza. And Iskandar Mirza was the great-grandson of Mir Jafar. So here we have it. We have Muslims in India, with Hindus and Sikhs and other people, fight for their freedom and freedom from colonial rule from the British. And the first man they appoint as president is the great-grandson of the greatest traitor in our history, who allowed the British to establish rule over India. And that's the kind of people we are, us Indo-Paks. We're just amazing. And the second thing about Iskandar Mirza is that he was of East Bengali origin. He was from Murshidabad. He spoke Bengali. And when he was sent from West Pakistan as the governor of East Pakistan to suppress the language movement, which I'll talk about later, when he got off the plane, he surprised everybody by speaking in Bengali and saying, I'll deal with this problem, in terms of warning the Bangla-speaking people of East Pakistan that I'm here to deal with you. And Iskandar Mirza was a military man. And there are some really common traits in the names that I'll take, that most of these people were either Oxbridge educated or went to Sandhurst. And they spoke English better than any of us did. And many right-wing conservatives would get jealous when they see these guys, how Anglified they are. And the term used for them is WOG, Westernized Oriental Gentleman. Okay? So Iskandar Mirza went to Sandhurst, not surprising. And this is the kind of the common denominator amongst all the ruling elite of the British Raj that went on to lead Muslims in Britain, that they either went to Oxford or Cambridge, or they went to a military school like Sandhurst, or they went to a Catholic missionary school in Karachi, Dhaka, or Calcutta, or wherever. And they were the true servants of colonial rule. That India, this big country, had been freed of colonial rule, but the colonial system had created enough masters of their own to continue the system. And this is the same problem we face in Bangladesh, Pakistan, India today, that you'll find people who are more westernized and more British than people in Britain are, yet they don't live in Britain, they live in those countries. So 1757, Siraj-ud-Dawla loses the battle, and a month later Mir Jafar's son hangs him, and that's pretty much the end of Muslim rule in Bengal, and it comes down to the British Raj. After that, a funny thing happened with Bengal, particularly. Lord Curzon, who was the Viceroy of India at the time, in 1905, against the advice and wishes of other people, other British Raj rulers and administrators who said don't do this, split Bengal in half. So he divided up Bengal, which consisted of Bihar, Odisha and Bengal, and East Bengal consisted of East Bengal, most of Bangladesh, Assam and Tripura and all those. You know, if you know the map of Bangladesh, on the right hand side, if you're looking down at it, you've got on the eastern side all that stretch all the way to Burma. Okay? This upset a lot of the Hindu people, because suddenly they became a majority in West Bengal but a minority in East Bengal, and the Muslims, so it kind of divided people in a religious divide. Whatever his reasons were, it benefited the Muslims a little bit, because Dhaka became the capital of East Bengal, Calcutta became the capital of West Bengal, and the Hindus in West Bengal vehemently protested against it, and a lot of the Hindus even in East Bengal protested. You all heard of somebody called Rabindranath Tagore? Yeah. He coined the Amar Shunar Bangla poem, which later became the national anthem of Bangladesh, and it all kind of starts from there. This identity of Bengali people as a different race based on their own language. In 1911, Bangladesh was reunited, and in 1947 it was again split up, and there was a referendum, and the people of, for example, Sylhet, voted in a referendum to be part of Pakistan, or East Bengal, the Muslim state, as opposed to joining India. And again, Sylhet was split, Assam was kept separate from that. Some other interesting things happened in Bangladesh, and we all know about some particular dates. 21 February, Ekushi they call it in Bengali, is the day of the language movement. In 1948, there was a call to make Urdu the language, the state language, all of Pakistan. Okay? And this led to a lot of problems. And a lot of the things that happened afterwards happened because of this language movement. Originally, in 1947, after the end of the British Raj, Bangladesh wasn't called East Pakistan, it was called the East Bengal province, like Northwest Frontier province, as you know, in Pakistan. In 1956, it was named East Pakistan. Okay, so a lot of people don't know these technical differences. The name East Pakistan didn't happen in 1947. And also there's what we called the Lahore Accord, that when the movement for forming a separate Muslim country, and Bangladesh is really affected by the politics of the British Raj as much as the post-Raj politics. Okay, some of the founding fathers of the Pakistan movement, like Hussain Shahid Saharwardi and other people, they were from East Bengal, they were of Bengali origin. And the Lahore Accord was to have a Muslim country that had independent federal states that would come together to be a federal country called Pakistan, or a federation, The name Pakistan was coined, but it wasn't a name that was agreed initially. And Muslims in India were divided into two. There was Muslims who wanted, and they were known as Muslim Leaguers. Sheikh Mujib himself was a Muslim Leaguer, and they wanted an independent Muslim homeland. Okay, so it's very important to understand that at that period, half of the Muslims in India under the British Raj wanted a separate homeland. They say that Allama Iqbal first came up with the idea, but whoever came up with the idea, there are lots of variations as to whose idea it was first. But the fact was that Muslims were divided, not only amongst the common folk, but even amongst the religious elite and the educated elite. And then you had the people like Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani, who were part of what we call, what is today the Congress Party. And Congress wanted a united India. I'm somebody who's a direct student of the Hussain Ahmad Madani school of thought, and I have for many years held the view that there shouldn't have been a Muslim country. It should have remained united India and should have been a federation of states. But when you see what's happened in India now, there are no rights and wrongs in this. I believe, and everybody also accepts, that people on both sides, Muslims, were sincere in what they wanted. So there are people who don't like people like Muhammad Ali Jinnah, especially Bengali people don't like him. But I think these people sincerely wanted a Muslim homeland. And even Darul Uloom Deoband, the famous seminary in India, they were divided themselves. The seminary's official position, the Darul Uloom's position was that of Congress, that they wanted to remain in a united India. But the Grand Mufti of Darul Uloom Deoband at the time, Mufti Shafi rahimahullah, who's the father of Mufti Taqi Uthmani, the famous Mufti that everybody knows, he resigned his position and joined Muslim League. So, you've got the biggest Islamic seminary in the southeast of Asia that dominates the whole southeast of Asia, and Asian people wherever they've gone globally, and itself was divided in two in terms of what's right and wrong. So you can't say that according to Sharia or according to pan-Islamic ideas, one party was right and the other party was wrong. The people who are of the Congress mindset actually believe that it's in the interest of the Muslims to decide their destiny afterwards and not allow the separation and the split to be done by the British Raj, because they'll do it detrimental to the interests of the Muslims, which later proved to be right and true. The people, and they also believed that they could live with the Hindu folk that they've lived with all their lives. In fact, Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani wrote a paper called Composite Nationalism in Islam, where he religiously challenged and advocated the fact that as Muslims you can live in a nation state with other non-Muslims as long as your religious rights and identity was enshrined in the constitution and safeguarded. But he was refuted. Allama Iqbal wrote poetry against him. He was so angry that how could, we want our own homeland. The people who wanted the Muslim homeland didn't trust the British and didn't trust Congress. And Congress, the people in Congress showed their true colours. I think it wasn't Mahatma Gandhi, because he was killed fairly early on by Hindu nationalists because of his close affiliation with Muslims. That was the reason they killed him. But Jawaharlal Nehru and others, they kind of started showing their true colours. And you can see in India today, Muslims are really, really under pressure. But if you look at both sides of the argument, if India was a united country, so imagine a country from the borders of Afghanistan to the other side of Burma, right? The population today is would be about 1.5 billion people, and about 600 million of them would be Muslims. So the Muslims would be like just over a third, and pretty powerful, because a lot of the Abul Kalam Azad's idea was of a federal India. So each state would govern its rules, similar to America, and would have a common foreign policy. What was done in 47, and two people are responsible for this. One is Mountbatten, the last viceroy, the current Queen, Prince Charles's great uncle. Mountbatten was sent by the king of this country on a 2-year mission to withdraw British, end British rule in India and do whatever needed, whether it's partition or whatever. He done the job in 8 months because he didn't like Indian people, he didn't like living in India, and it's alleged that his wife was having an affair with Nehru. So adding all this up, and he is personally responsible for millions of people being killed in the communal violence in 1947. Many people in Punjab lost their lives. In the Bengal side it was less. It's Punjab, it was very, very vicious. Muslims killed Sikhs, Sikhs killed Muslims, Sikhs killed Sikhs because they thought that village they're in was going to end up in Pakistan, Muslim Punjab. So there are stories that I've seen, and I've seen documentaries where old Sikh men are telling stories of how their parents killed all the women off in their village because they thought that this village is going to end up in the hands of Muslims. But later on, when Cecil released his map, the guy who did the partition, by the way, was a barrister called Cecil who'd never been anywhere further than Paris in his life. Went to India 2 weeks, drew a map. Okay, that's it, we're dividing it up. Has anybody seen the film Twins? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Daniel DeVito. If you know the storyline, basically they wanted to create this superhuman, right? So Pakistan's very much like Twins. Muslims wanted to create this super country for Muslims, but it ended up in 2 because 2 people came out, okay? So 2 countries came out. And I feel as a Bangladeshi who's born in Bangladesh, that we ended up like Daniel DeVito. We come up with the idea, but we got hard done by the ruling elite of Punjab and by the system itself. So when the partition happened, Cecil drew this map. Lots of things happened. I mean, you can't blame one particular incident, but Muslims lost out because what happened is Muslims were divided into 3. Now you have 150 million Muslims in Pakistan. You have anything officially between 150 to unofficially 300 million Muslims in India, and you have another 150 million in Bangladesh. So the worst way the Muslims could have been divided happened. Even Churchill said, just split it down the middle, and whoever wants to go on the Muslim side, tell them to go that side and give the Hindus half, Muslims half. The partition didn't happen fairly. And this is what led to 1971. I'm not boring you with Indian partition details, but it's very important that we understand the background to this. The partition happened very unfairly in terms of resources and stuff. And I've traveled to India, and anybody who's traveled to India will understand that if you have a kingdom and somebody takes it away from you and gives you your garden and says, this is what happened to the Muslims. That most people, Muslims that have grown up in Pakistan and in Bangladesh, have never been to India, have never seen what they've had to leave behind. Okay? India is this vast country. It's a global superpower. It was ruled by Muslims. And it was given over to the Hindus by the British Raj. And the Muslims got left out. Bangladesh, Pakistan, Kashmir was divided, Punjab was divided, Bengal was divided. So basically Muslims were left handicapped. And this handicap then led on to the oppressive policies of West Pakistanis against East Pakistan. Right from the outset, the Bengali people of East Pakistan, or East Bengal province as it was known, were not treated fairly when it comes to the economy, when it comes to sharing of resources. There was discontent all along from the beginning. People of East Pakistan origin couldn't hold high office. If they did, they were turfed out, through a military coup or by the president chucking them out. There were Bengali origin people who were worthy of positions, and whenever they came into power, somehow an excuse was found to get rid of them. So there was 2-3 types of neglect of East Pakistan, because I'm going to use the word East Pakistan now, yeah? One was economic neglect. What led to 71 was there was a flood, there was some really big floods in East Pakistan in 1970, and the response was worse than George Bush's response to Louisiana. Okay, like the West Pakistanis couldn't be bothered. Ayub Khan later admitted that they could have done better. Okay, there was intellectual neglect. So all the brain drain was always going west, towards West Pakistan. the gaps of intellectuals were being filled by Hindu, Bengali-speaking intellectuals from West Bengal, Calcutta, in Dhaka and places like that, which led to two things. One is, there's always been a secular element in the British Raj, the WOGs that I spoke about. Some of them were Muslims. In Bangladesh today, some of them have the most beautiful Bengali names, but they are, overtly anti-Islam. And this happened in the British Raj. You'll find people that have these wonderful, amazing names that, you'll find that the parents were ulama or very religious, or they came from a Sufi order family, but one generation down, right? Famous secularist guy in Bangladesh, Tajuddin Ahmad, he was Hafiz of the Quran. His father was a Maulvi, but he was a staunched secular person who was later killed in prison. So how does these things happen? Secularism and extreme secularists have been working in India right from the era of the British Raj. The target to take Islam and the millah, the Islamic way out of people, that you can remain Muslim, you can have a Muslim name, you can do your folkloric and symbolic Muslim things, but you can't have a true Muslim identity. That's been ongoing. It's not a new thing. And it started, there was the big fight between the secularists and the Islamists during the partition. And it all came to a boil when it was announced that Urdu was going to be the national language of Pakistan. And this announcement was exploited by the secularists like there's no tomorrow. And it's still exploited today. The language movement is seen as the founding seeds and the founding, not fathers, but the founding inspiration behind Bangladesh. Because people were ready to die for their language. At no time when Urdu was announced as a national language did anybody say that you're not allowed to speak Bengali anymore, that suddenly the Bengali language is going to be erased from that region. It never happens. There are so many countries around the world where you have an administrative language. Urdu was also imposed on the whole of Pakistan today. But Pakistan people speak different languages. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the Pashtuns, they speak Pashto. The Punjabi speak Punjabi. Urdu is not their language. The Sindhi speak Sindhi. The Baluchi speak Baluchi. But everybody speaks Urdu. And I don't think it would have been a big deal if the people of Bangladesh, and most of the elite spoke Urdu, by the way, right? Accepted Urdu as an administrative language. But this was an excuse used by secularists to say, look, here we are, our mother language is going to now be erased by these people. And again, the argument was an ethnic argument between two ethnic groups. But it suddenly, religion crops into it, because Urdu was the religious identity of Muslims in India. Okay? So somehow they use this and they go, the language movement, nobody speaks about this openly in Bangladesh, okay? But you get tones and you can smell that somehow it's the Muslims that try to destroy the Urdu language. And why do we champion this guy, Rabindranath Tagore, so much? When we had Nazrul Islam, who was a Muslim, and other great poets in Bangladesh. Tagore is imposed on us. So you've got to look at the themes that I'm talking about to you, that there's this common thread that's used, and it starts in 1952. And the martyrs of the Urdu, of the language movement, well, some of them were not even Muslims, so how are they martyrs then? They're shaheeds, and people look up, there's a shaheed minar for them. But shaheed is a Muslim term, What have you stolen our term for? Okay? But there were other reasons for discontent, and there were other players in the scene that were not happy with what was going on in East Pakistan and how the East Pakistanis were being treated. And one of the greatest men behind, and one of the first people to come out with the notion of an independent East Pakistan was a man called Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani. Maulana Bashani is a very famous man in Bangladesh, in the history of Bangladesh. He is one of the founding fathers of Bangladesh. He was actually like a father figure to Sheikh Mujib. And he actually cried the day Mujib died, was killed. when he was told that Mujib had been killed brutally in the way he had been killed. The man who reported the incident to Maulana Bashani narrates that Maulana broke up, wept, and then went to his room and prayed. He went into Salah and he prayed for Mujib. He was deeply upset by it, but he also lent his support to the post-Mujib government, and he made it clear that I'm not supporting you because I support the killing of Mujib, I'm supporting you because we want this country to be built and prosper. So Maulana Bashani was a student of Sheikh al-Hind, took part in the Khilafah movement, was known as the Red Maulana because he was a socialist Maulana. His main power base was in the grassroots poor people, didn't have an Oxbridge background, didn't speak, with a posh accent, it was a very poor man, and was an inspiration to many people, and was one of the founders of the Awami League. And because he believed in also, having other people in his party, because Awami League originally started with the name Awami Muslim League, and then Awami League. He was with Shahid Saharwardi first. Mujib joined them as well. Mujib was a junior in their ranks, Sheikh Mujib. But then he split from Saharwardi because Hussein Shahid Saharwardi became the Prime Minister of Pakistan once, and he was quite right-wing. He was pro-America. Maulana was pro-Russia and China. He was more of a socialist. So that's why he then changed his party to National Awami Party, NAP. One of the interesting things is that Maulana Bashani's biography was part of historical text in Bangladesh in school, as part of the national curriculum. This current government has removed that, and people have asked the question, why have you removed the biography of the greatest man in Bengali history in the modern era in terms of Bangladesh as a country? Okay, because that secular movement that exploited the language issue has been systematically exploiting other issues, and I'll come to that later. As you know, in 1970, the elections happened for the whole of Pakistan, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, with his Awami League party, won a majority vote. And when he won this, there was a refusal by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. I don't know if any of you heard the name. You've heard of Benazir Bhutto, right? Benazir Bhutto is the daughter of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. It was martial law at the time, and martial law was coming to an end. And now my internet's not working. Bhutto didn't want Sheikh Mujib to become the Prime Minister, basically. That's the bottom line. They didn't want an East Pakistani who had separatist tendencies. Sheikh Mujib had started talking about independence. But people who know Sheikh Mujib, who've interviewed him, who've studied Sheikh Mujib, who've read about Sheikh Mujib, including myself, I actually believe that Sheikh Mujib was not a separatist. Sheikh Mujib wanted a 6-point autonomy for Bangladesh, for East Pakistan. He went with his 6-point demand. He was imprisoned. Previously, he was imprisoned for what they call the Agartala conspiracy. Sheikh Mujib and some other Bengali leaders met with Indian Secret Service, allegedly in Tripura, which is part of India. If you see the map of Bangladesh, there's like a carved out piece underneath Kumilla. Well, Tripura was the people who, in that referendum in 1947, to join when the British Raj was ending, decided to go with India. Okay, so part of Kumilla they went with India, and Sylhet, the bit on top, decided to stay with Pakistan. And Sheikh Mujib was imprisoned for that. There was a guy called Rahimullah Khan, General Rahimullah Khan. He was the chief judge for the military tribunal that tried Sheikh Mujib, but nobody ever revealed or released what happened in that tribunal, whether Sheikh Mujib was found guilty or not. But he was later released, basically. Okay. The first sort of 1970 democratic elections in Pakistan was won by Sheikh Mujib, and during this time, it's a really interesting time. Bhutto actually sent one of his closest aides, a guy called Mubashir Hassan, who headed the Pakistani Atomic Commission, who was in prison with Bhutto, to go to talk to Sheikh Mujib and cut a deal with him and say, look, I'll be the president, Bhutto, and Mujib, you can be the prime minister. The problem was that they forgot to tell the military rulers of Pakistan. And I'll show you a video of what Ayub Khan looks like and how he speaks. Okay, and the Pakistani military ruling elite, and sadly some of them are still true today, and like I said at the beginning, there are many people that are not going to agree with what I say, but they're not very Islamic, some of them, to put it nicely or lightly. They call it the Quetta Club culture, and it's the Sandhurst of Pakistan, and they are taught and brought up to be arrogant, to look down on people, not just enemies, but even subjects in their own country. This is the culture, and the military culture of Pakistan, and even today, has been destructive for the whole of Pakistan. Even if the military ruler was an Islamist, and Muslim people celebrate General Ziaur al-Haq as being the great Islamist leader of the modern era, but they've all been brutal. People forget that military people are brutal, especially Pakistani and Bangladeshi military rulers. Okay, they have been brutal in the way that they've dealt with their people. This deal never happened, and basically there's an operation called it was called Operation Searchlight, and the West Pakistani army sent. They cancelled all flights into East Pakistan. They chucked out all the diplomats. The one diplomat that they took to embedded with their army to East Pakistan is the guy who wrote the famous report. Forgotten his name, Anthony Mascarenhas or something, which led to the whole world kind of being brought to attention about what's happening in Bangladesh. And the military operation in 1971 was very, very brutal, and many people were killed. And we shouldn't forget that it was brutality. It was a small genocide. About true estimates were about 300,000 to 400,000 people were killed. You've heard the figure 3 million. The 3 million figure came from the Pakistani side. I think it was Yahya Khan who said that if we kill 3 million of them, they'll eat from our hands. And Sheikh Mujib, when he went back from London via Delhi and returned to Dhaka in his famous sort of arrival after the independence, he was told on the plane that 3 lakh people had been killed. Lakh in Urdu and Bengali means 100,000. He got out of the plane and he said 3 million, and that figure stuck. Okay, and I refute that figure and I challenge it, and many people have challenged it, because to kill 3 million people, you can't do it in 265 days. The war lasted about 265 days. Okay, from March till December. 26th of March till the 16th of December. Now, the Nazi machinery in Germany, in 6 years, using sophisticated killing techniques, using factories built up to kill people on a mass scale, managed to kill about 5-6 million people. I know people challenge the Holocaust and all the rest of it, but I'm talking about what's historically accepted as the facts. So how an army of 90,000 Pakistani soldiers who were busy fighting an active war, they weren't running concentration camps, they were fighting a war with the Mukti Bahini, with the support of India and Russia, had the time to kill 3 million people. It's just illogical. And this is again another emotional thing used by the secularist movement to stir up hatred in the people of Bangladesh, that they killed 3 million of us. Secondly, these figures of about 200,000 women being raped. If 200,000 women were raped and you divide that by 93, that means like every Pakistani soldier would have had to rape 3 women in his tour of duty for whatever period he was there in East Pakistan. So is that all they did? If all of them didn't do it, say like 10,000 of them were involved in the rape, that means every day they'd be raping somebody, right? So again, figures are exploited to exploit the emotions of people in Bangladesh. The 71 war has some important significances that we need to understand, and we need to understand why the secularist movement hijacked the 71 war. The 71 war was never a jihad of Islam against non-Islam. It was an ethnic war between one ethnic group and another ethnic group, majority of whom on both sides were Muslims. Okay, so it was the West Pakistanis suppressing and oppressing the East Pakistanis, and the East Pakistanis fighting back. The East Pakistanis just happened to be Bengali. They could have been Burmese, they could have been whatever, if they were from another region. The whole war and the whole movement was hijacked by the secularists, and there's a famous speech of Sheikh Mujib, because he joined the bandwagon in that. I don't think he was a secularist himself, about victory to secularism, victory to democracy and all the rest of it. But Muslim people did fight and support Pakistan, Muslims in Bangladesh. And it's a fact that most religious groups, ulama from all parts, all sectarian religious backgrounds, whether they were Brelwi, Deobandi, Sufi, whatever, they all did not like the fact that a Muslim country was going to be split in two. Okay, this is a fact. Jamaat-e-Islami took it a step further, and you hear about this thing about Razakar and war crimes. This is where it all comes from. Okay, during the war, many ulama fought alongside Pakistanis. Many ulama were killed by Mukti Bahini because they didn't want to recognize a secular democracy in a Muslim country. But there were people who, during that war, exploited the situation, who got their own back from other people. So there were Razakars. Of the 20,000 or so Razakars, a couple of hundred would have been religious Islamists. The rest of them were secularists, people who are opportunists, who did tit for tat. If you knew Urdu, you went and spoke to the Pakistani army, made friends with them, got them to go to the next village and kill your enemy or take land. But what happened is that because the secularists had issues with the religious parties, and Jamaat-Islami was one of the key sort of powerful religious parties, they made it a war against Islam and secularism. And this is what's going on today again. It's a continuation of that. After the liberation, because India joined the war officially on the 3rd of December. So some important dates. The war started, Operation Searchlight started on the 26th of March. Sheikh Mujib made a speech. Some people say Sheikh Mujib called for independence first. Others say Ziaur Rahman called for it from Chittagong. You know what, it doesn't matter. War broke out. We don't care who made the first speech. Okay, war broke out. A lot of my stuff and my interest and my information is oral history. So I've spoken to people, relatives, friends who've been directly involved in the war, in the Mukti Bahini. I've spoken to friends on the other side in Pakistan. I've actually met Memon people that were in Dhaka and they were chucked out of Bangladesh. These were business people who economically, brought prosperity to Bangladesh. The same Memon business community, both Jinnah and Nehru haggled over them. Jinnah said to them, Pakistan is your homeland, come and take whatever you want and start. And all the Muslim banking and financial hub moved to Karachi. Nehru said, you can stay in India. So there are a lot of Memons still in India, Muslim businessmen. But Bangladeshis, after 1971, we chucked them all out because we nationalized everything. So during these 265 days, a lot of bad things happened. A lot of people got killed. The worst thing that happened wasn't people who got killed in war, but people who were killed systematically. And in the last days of the war, intellectual people were killed. So people were selectively targeted and killed in Dhaka. Because once India had joined the war, within a week it had taken control of the skies. It had total air supremacy over East Pakistan, and basically the Pakistanis knew they were going to lose the war. And there were people in Bangladesh who colluded with the Pakistani army and who pointed out to people that these are intellectuals, kill them off. It's like a scorched earth policy. I'm sure if you've studied sort of East Western history, you know what scorched earth policy is. When the Nazi Germans were retreating from any country or any place, they completely destroyed everything where they were, so that the Allied forces, as they moved in, couldn't benefit from anything. So it's called scorched earth. And this was being applied in Dhaka and throughout Bangladesh, right at the end of the war. I've got first-hand account from people who said that Russia was involved in the war right from the beginning, that Russian fighter planes landed in India, they were painted in Indian livery, and then they flew sorties over East Pakistan and bombed Pakistani targets. There are many things. If you read about the request from Pakistani military to the Americans for support, the Americans sent their 7th Naval Fleet, the Russians sent 2 nuclear submarines. So we Bengalis were victims of Cold War as well. You know, the Americans never came to the aid of the Pakistanis in East Pakistan because the Russians threatened that if you attacked in India, we will attack you. And the Americans didn't want the Russians to invade southern India. Some of it goes back to the Americans wanting to build a naval port in Chittagong, which again ticked off the Indians. And the Indians in 1965 got a hammering from the Pakistanis because they fought in Pakistan on 2 fronts, east and west. And so Indira Gandhi didn't want a repeat of that. So we were victims of everything, all, you know, just like Afghanistan is today. Nobody wants peace in Afghanistan because it's not in anybody's interest. Okay? Bangladesh was similar, that we became a victim of all this. But whatever happened, the Pakistani General Niazi surrendered on the 16th of December, and a new country was born, basically. Bangladesh was born. During the war, a government was already formed in exile by Tajuddin Ahmed and others. Sheikh Mujib was in prison. He was later released. He came to London, went from London, the British Royal Air Force lent him a plane, went via Delhi, went to Dhaka, and became the president of Bangladesh in 1971. That's how Bangladesh came into being. Immediately after the war, there's some really interesting books and stuff that you can read on this, I'll tell you afterwards. Immediately after the war, but one book I want to mention is a book called The Betrayal of East Pakistan by General Niazi. Niazi was the commanding officer of the East Bengal regiment who fought the war against the Mukti Bahini and Indians. According to Niazi's own record and his own diary, whether you want to believe it or not, he never lost a military battle. And he was prevented from going past the borders. He wanted to go into Tripura, he wanted to go into Assam, and he wanted to take Indian territory. He was refused permission by people in West Pakistan. And then when later on he found out, he was told by his associates that Bhutto and Yahya Khan had decided to get rid of this Bengali problem, as they termed it, he gave up as well. But he goes, this notion that the Mukti Bahini were winning these great battles, he's absolute rubbish. He lists all the battles he fought, he lists how he defeated the Mukti Bahini. So, there's another side to the story, and we should read both sides. I know Bangladeshi people glorify the contribution of the Mukti Bahini. I think we can take pride in their courage, but I don't think they achieved much militarily because they weren't trained soldiers. India really didn't want to train a whole bunch of paramilitary Bengalis that it would have to deal with later on. And the war ended when India took decisive action, joined the war. The Pakistanis were stranded, no supplies. Took 2 weeks for India to defeat Pakistan and get revenge for 1965, and that's basically what happened. After the war, Sheikh Mujib fell out with the Indians. He wanted the Indians to leave Bangladesh immediately. The Indians, Indira Gandhi betrayed him on several occasions. The 93,000 troops that were taken prisoner to India, there's a thing called the Simla Agreement. It's a famous agreement between Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Indira Gandhi in May 1972, where they decided that India and Pakistan would patch up their differences. They'll put 71 behind them, because Pakistan sees 1971. We in Bangladesh see 71 as the war of independence. The Pakistanis see as the war with India that they lost. They don't consider Bengalis beating them and them losing the war. Okay, I know it's hard for Bangladeshi people to consider this, but these are the facts in Pakistan. In the Simla agreement, they agreed between them that they're going to release all these prisoners. Of those 93,000 soldiers, there were 195 known and charged war criminals, senior military officers that committed the atrocities that should have been tried under the Geneva Convention. But in 1974, a chap called, and this is interesting, Kamal Hussein, Dr. Kamal Hussein, I think he's still alive today. He was the foreign minister for Bangladesh. He was an Awami Leaguer, close associate of Sheikh Mujib, Oxford educated lawyer. Remember the similarity between these people? He drafted the Bangladeshi constitution in 1972, signed the Delhi agreement, which is the second Simla agreement, and released all these prisoners. So my question, which I'll talk about later, to the current day Awami League government, why did you release those war criminals in 1974? Because India had agreed that it's going to be released. We don't have a choice in this. You know, this was done in Sheikh Mujib's time. The actual guys that committed the atrocities, the 995 officers that were recognized and charged for war crimes, got released. And Dr. Kamal himself fell out with Sheikh Hasina in the 90s and set up his own political party later on. Post-independence, Bangladesh was formed. There was the famine of 1974. There was a lot of discontent. Sheikh Mujib was a great leader, but he had a lot of issues. He wasn't a great administrator. He didn't run the country properly. He might try to micromanage anything. He didn't have good administrators around him. He became more and more socialist first in his approach, and then he's accused of becoming Islamist. This is really strange. The secularists in Bangladesh accused Sheikh Mujib of becoming an Islamist near the end of his life. He dropped the word Joy Bangla. You heard the term Joy Bangla was like this freedom slogan. The last 2 years of his life he stopped using Joy Bangla. He would use Khuda Hafiz, which is like an Iranian Shia term that Muslims use in Bangladesh, instead of saying salam. Okay, you know, Islamic Sunnah is to say assalamu alaikum, but you'll see people in Bangladesh using Khuda Hafiz a lot. He started using Khuda Hafiz, and we forget who Sheikh Mujib was. Sheikh Mujib was a Muslim leaguer. He did not want a Muslim country split in two. He was the 6-point autonomy man and stuff like that. And what's really sad and like a turning point in Bangladesh's history as a country on its own is the killing of Sheikh Mujib. And Sheikh Mujib was killed in 1975. Just get the exact date. He was brutally killed, and there is no right in the way Sheikh Mujib was killed. And my personal opinion on this is that if Sheikh Mujib was wrong in the way he ruled the country, he banned all other political parties. His son was up to no good, you know, causing mischief. There were lots of problems. I mean, he messed it up completely. But that did not justify both killing him and killing his entire family in cold blood. That was completely wrong. But what the ironic thing is about the killing of Sheikh Mujib is that everybody knew something's going to happen to Sheikh Mujib. Nobody did anything about it. I don't think everybody who knew that Sheikh Mujib's going to be killed knew that he was going to be brutally killed with his family. I think everybody thought he's going to get arrested, put in prison, you know. Similar to what General Ziaur in Pakistan did to Bhutto. He hanged Bhutto through the courts and refused to pardon him. Okay, people thought, you know, something would happen to Sheikh Mujib, but these guys that went to kill him brutally killed him, and their excuse for killing him was that, oh, if we didn't kill him, he would have killed us. I don't buy that argument, because they killed him and they lived on in Bangladesh like free men for many years. They got hanged recently, as you know, some of them. If they had the confidence that they could live on in a country where you kill its leader with his entire family, they must have known that they could have jailed him and got away with it as well. Okay, and remember I said I'm going to share some stuff with you. I'm going to show you this video, which is sickening actually. I find it really distasteful. But these are two of the guys that killed Sheikh Mujib. Okay, and watch their video when they come to this country. This is after they killed Sheikh Mujib, and they're giving an interview in London to a BBC reporter. Yeah?
Two Bengali army officers, Colonel Farooq Rahman and Colonel Abdur Rashid, tell why they overthrew and killed Mujib, the man who'd been called the father of Bangladesh.
Did you make any effort to make it known to Mujib that this should be changed?
Well, no, I cannot make any effort because I am just a junior officer in the army. I have no hand to tell him that you should correct yourself.
In these circumstances, Couldn't you have forced him to resign, or was it necessary to kill him?
Now, you see, this, as I said earlier also, he's the man, say, up to the main point, but he's not an administrator. So in that, only thing that he has got a very good quality to agitate the general mass. Okay? So if he was remained alive, it would have been a very difficult for us to control the situation, whereby he is being a more experienced on the political side. So just to stay in the power, he could have done any sort of mischievous act at the cost of even the country also.
So you would think that had Mujib remained alive, he would have turned the tables on you all?
Yes, that would have been his first effort.
And so you had to eliminate him, but
yes,
you had to kill him.
Yes, I had to.
Once set on removing Mujib, the young colonels had to find someone to put in his place. Their obvious choice was a man of their own kind, an army man. So they approached Major General Ziaur.
The first obvious choice was General Ziaur, because at least he was not tarnished. So after a lot of arrangements, I managed to see him on 20th of March 1975 in the evening. General Ziaur said, I am a senior officer, I cannot be involved in such things. If you junior officers want to do it, go ahead. Then we walked in the lawn and I told him, sir, that we are professional soldiers. We serve the country. We do not serve any individual. We have to change it. We, the junior officers, have already worked it out. We want your support and your leadership.
Colonel Rashid, you and Colonel Farooq made Mr. Mushtaq president after Mujib's death. Did you bring him into the plot before that?
Yes, I had the first contact with him around the first week of August. And subsequently I met him on 13th as well as on 14th.
A guy called Khandaqar Mushtaq Ahmed became the president immediately after Sheikh Mujib. They say the CIA knew about it, they say the Indians knew about it, everybody knew Sheikh Mujib was going to get bumped. And, that's what happened. General Ziaur then became power. Then, as you know, Ziaur got assassinated in 1981. Interestingly, during Sheikh Mujib's time, he took absolute power. He declared a state of emergency. He again amended the constitution. He started a thing called Rakhi Bahini. They killed about 40,000 people. So there was general lawlessness. Since then, General Ziaur, there's a thing in Bangladesh, you're either a Mujibist or you're a General Ziaur follower, Ziaur Rahman. I say to people that I like both Sheikh Mujib and General Ziaur. I think both have had their contributions, both have had issues, but we should look beyond the issues and look at their contributions. General Ziaur was a true statesman. He took Bangladesh to the international scene. He did lots of different things that made Bangladesh become recognized. The reason that there are so many Bangladeshis in the Middle East working is purely down to General Ziaur. He had a very close bond with King Khalid of Saudi Arabia, who used to treat him like a younger brother, and basically based on that allowed millions of Bangladeshis to go to Saudi Arabia and the other parts of the Arab world. Coming to after Sheikh Mujib's death, most people that supported the Pakistani army in its war, in Operation Searchlight, ulama and everybody, kind of closed shop after 1971 and just shut up on talking about why they supported it, because they realized that at the time, even though technically it was right for them to support a Pakistani Muslim country, but there was no institutional Islam in Pakistan. There has never been, and there isn't today. I think there's Islam in the people of Pakistan, there's Islam in the people of Bangladesh, but there's never been institutional Islam. The people who've tried to establish institutional Islam have either been killed off or sidelined or ridiculed. And that's been happening since 1947. I think it was an ijtihadi khata, as we say. It's probably an ijtihadi mistake at the time to try support an institution that doesn't really uphold Islam at all. And the people behind that institution really don't have much Islam in them. I can show you, this is the guy who...
Mr. Bhutto, do you think that President Yahya should now hand over power to you?
I find it difficult to answer this question here. I must return to Pakistan before I speak on it. Of course I will speak on this matter, and the place is Pakistan.
But do you think the time has now come for you to lead the country?
Well, I've been elected by the people. Let's find someone else from Mars, and that's a different matter. But as far as the people of Pakistan are concerned, they have elected me as their chosen and undisputed leader a year ago.
But outside Pakistan, you have said that this government has made some mistakes.
Certainly.
What sort of mistakes?
Well, coming to the present, the delay, inordinate, inexplicable delay in the transfer of power, that I think has been a fatal blunder. The power should have been transferred much earlier.
To whom?
To us, to the elected people. Elections were held, and the results of the elections should have been implemented.
Okay, leave that. I don't think any of us speak English as well as he does, do you? He was later actually hanged in Pakistan, by the way. General Ziaur hanged him for killing a political opponent. But we had Ziaur Rahman in Bangladesh. He was also assassinated in May 1981. Again, the people that assassinated him were allegedly hanged, but nobody got to finding out why he was killed, because the man who actually fired the bullets was killed while being arrested, so he never got to tell his story in court. But we forget that in the 70s and early 80s, the CIA ran assassination campaigns throughout the world, through developing countries in South America, in Africa, so it wouldn't be far-fetched for Sheikh Mujib, Ziaur Rahman, and other people in those parts of the world to have been bumped off by the CIA, but using local agents and local supporters to do that. General Ziaur reintroduced democracy in Bangladesh. He allowed all these parties to come back. Interestingly enough, most religious people in Bangladesh, like I said earlier, will not admit to either supporting Pakistan, will say that it was a mistake, or will refuse to answer the question. The Jamaat Islami have continued to hold the position that what they did in 1971 was correct, and they stand by that. I have a problem with that personally, because two things. One is that even if you were correct, with hindsight you should just accept that it may have been a mistake because of the brutality and oppression of the Pakistanis. And secondly, it gives excuse to the secularist and anti-Islam brigade to do whatever it wants and what it's doing now. Because every 5-10 years they bring this issue up of 1971, the independence war, the whole Rajakar issue, and the war is against Islam, but Jamaat Islami is just kind of a bogeyman that they kind of attack. And it's Jamaat's fault that they should have done two things. A, they should acknowledge that they may have made mistakes, or if people have made mistakes in their party, it's done, finished. Because the perpetrators of the crime, the Pakistani military, have acknowledged that they did wrong. So why is Jamaat Islami insisting that they didn't do wrong? And the second biggest mistake Jamaat Islami made is that their current leader, who's awaiting trial, Ghulam Azam, it's an old man, 90 years old, they probably will try to hang him. He left Bangladesh in 1971 and settled in Pakistan and England. But in 1990, what year was it he went back? I think he went back in 94. No, 84, hold on, let me just find him for you. In 1994, he had his citizenship reinstated by the Supreme Court of Bangladesh as a citizen of Bangladesh. But he lived in Bangladesh as a Pakistani citizen from the time he went back and until 1994. And that really rubbed the secularists up the wrong way. And I have an issue with that. I don't think any one person is greater than a movement or a party or a cause. And why did they have to reappoint Ghulam Azam as the leader of their party? Just to rub up the secularists the wrong way and to give them an excuse to continue attacking Islam and give them an excuse to what's happening today. And I think the Jamaat, if they want to be serious about Islamic politics in Bangladesh, going forward from what's happening now, have to address some of the faults and mistakes they've made, because otherwise they're going to be a hindrance for Islamic politics in Bangladesh. Anybody wants to, you see, I went to Bangladesh in 1998, I think, first time, after about, I can't remember, so many, about 18 years. And in Bangladesh, if you have a trim beard, they think you're a Jamaat Islami. or I was quite young then, or if you're a traditional person but you wear normal clothes. So if I wear salwar kameez, I'm not Jamaat Islami, but if I come out in my trackies and t-shirt, they think, oh, he must be a Jamaat Islami. And it's kind of seen as a way of attacking Islam in Bangladesh. And this is something really serious. But we need to get away from, I'm not blaming the people who are on trial today. There were people who committed atrocities in 1971 in collusion with the Pakistani military. They should have been brought to trial. I think 42 years is too long, that they can be brought to trial now in a fair trial. And if anybody is guilty, there should be a proper process, or they should be sent to The Hague for, to the proper international war crimes tribunal, and not something they've set up in Bangladesh calling it international. I don't know what's international about that. But continuously, what's happened since 1971, since 1952, and now is that the secularists in Bangladesh who turned their back on Sheikh Mujib because he started becoming more Islamic, who didn't like Ziaur Rahman because he was a pan-Islamist, who whenever any religious group gets a grip of power in Bangladesh will turn and exploit that situation, from the language movement to the war against the war of independence to what's happening right now in Bangladesh. There are people in the ruling Awami League party, and I actually believe that the common person who supports Awami League doesn't even understand these dynamics. They don't even understand that there are people around the rulers of the Awami League ruling elite who are completely communist, who are completely atheist, who've got an agenda to destroy Islam. And sadly, Jamaat Islami is their bogeyman. Jamaat have allowed them to do, given them excuses to do it. It's not, I don't think, Jamaat have a choice now what pans out. But innocent Muslims are getting killed. People are getting killed because they have an Islamic identity. Beards are getting pulled. If you wear a turban, it's getting ripped off. And then people are becoming shaheed who are complete atheists. This guy called Rajib Haidar is supposed to be the shaheed of the what's the Shahbag movement, the rent-a-crowd democratic freedom people. They are a rent-a-crowd. That's what they are. If they were truly democratic, they should be calling for civil justice. They should be calling for law and order in Bangladesh. They should be calling for an end to nepotism, end to feudal politics, and to politics of family rule. From any side, whether it's BNP, whether it's Awami League, anybody. People's children don't have an automatic right to rule in a democratic society. They should be calling for end of corruption. Yet they're only calling for one thing. They're calling for death of a few religious guys who allegedly committed crimes in 1971. A, there isn't proper due process, and B, they're continuing the hatred. The politics of hatred. There are little children going there, dressed up with their faces painted in green and red, and wanting death for people. Is this what what people want? Is this what civilized people do? That they take their children and teach them hatred continuously? When is it going to come to an end? And I think there isn't much we can do immediately, but we as a people who have an ethnic identity of a Bengali origin or have some affiliation with Bangladesh, through our relatives, through our faith, we need to constructively start looking forward beyond this current crisis. We don't know where this crisis is going to go. It could lead to civil war in Bangladesh. Anybody in Bangladesh who challenges the Indian influence over Bengali sovereignty gets sidelined. Anybody who questions anything about Sheikh Mujib is suddenly seen as enemy of the state. No. I have love for Sheikh Mujib in my heart, but I can't just defend everything he did. I have love for Ziaur Rahman. I can't defend everything he did. They did wrong things. I'm not here to perpetuate the things they did wrong and make a big hoo-ha about it. I'm here to celebrate what they've done good and move on as a people and as a nation. And nobody's allowed to do that. There's this polarization in Bangladesh that you're either a Mujibist or you're either a Islamist. And that's not the case. The case is that there are common good people in Bangladesh who pray to Allah, who are sincere in their faith, but they just don't understand that their faith and their identity has been played on by these extreme secularists who hate Islam. When somebody writes a blog saying that if God came down, we would hang him, na'udhu billah, right? And then we celebrate that afterwards, that he's a shaheed because he got killed. He ain't no shaheed. What kind of shaheed is he? He might be shaheed for Iblis, but he ain't definitely no shaheed for Islam. But the thing is, people say he didn't write it. Where's the refutation from the guys who support him? You know, it's not there. Do you understand? It's not there. There are ruling party parliamentarians openly calling for undermining Islam. There's a guy who's calling that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim should be removed from the constitution. This is not an Islamic country. Why is it in a country where there's 85 to 90% people Muslim, why is it wrong for them to call their country a Muslim country? When this is a Christian country. It's ruled by Christian people. There's nothing wrong with David Cameron coming out and saying that this is a Christian country. We are, Muslims of Britain, right? It doesn't take anything away from our rights, them calling themselves a Christian country. Bangladesh calling itself a Muslim country doesn't take away any rights of Hindus and Buddhists and other people that live in Bangladesh. It's just the majority of the people expressing their religious identity. But these secularists want to, take that away. And I think we have to, if we are serious about helping Bangladesh, we have to reverse the trend. And have you noticed that a lot of people in Bangladesh and Pakistan are named Mustafa Kemal? It's a very popular name. Do you know why, guys? It's after that guy in Turkey. Okay, right? There's people. I got a friend in Nottingham called Qaddafi, yeah, and there's a mosque in Birmingham called Saddam Hussein Mosque. But us Muslims are great at taking names of these so-called amazing people. But Mustafa Kemal is a very popular name because Kemalist ideology, which has failed in Turkey, by the way, many of you go to Turkey, you'll see that the Kemalist ideology was complete destruction of Islam. You know, Mustafa Kemal and his Kemalist communists, they were. I mean, they were absolutely. I don't know what you want to call it. I think even the communists would be ashamed of them. Tried to eliminate Islam from Turkey, absolutely. And this has been tried in Bangladesh. If you look at, and in Pakistan, if you look at any secularist in that part of the world, they will tell you, Pervez Musharraf, when he first came to power, who did he say his hero was? Mustafa Kemal. Okay, go to Bangladesh. All these secularists, they all look up to Mustafa Kemal. Okay. It's going to be an ongoing battle. We have to separate the secularist battle and the crisis with Jamaat Islami, and we have to support Muslims when they're going down and they're being attacked. Okay, we have to pray for the people of Bangladesh. There was I've got so much stuff written, but I've realized I've already gone like 1.5 hours, so I'm going to try wrap it up now. But it's going to be difficult to just tell you everything that happened. But I hope I've given you like a chronological history of what happened, the key incidents, the key people, and this partition from Pakistan was always going to happen. Both the people in Pakistan knew it, both the people in Bangladesh knew it. Those who were sincere and cared about these two countries, including Sheikh Mujib, didn't want partition. And this is a historical fact. Sheikh Mujib wanted a 6-point autonomy. His hand was forced by the brutal military rulers of Pakistan, who wanted to brutally suppress any dissent in East Pakistan, which led to the independence. But during those 265 days, the religious community of Bangladesh supported the Pakistani army. Some did it just without oppressing people, others supported the oppression, and we're now faced with a situation that 42 years later, that old record is still being played again and again by the secularists who want to exploit these emotional events of history in the people of Bengal's timeline to destroy Islam. And that is what is happening. And my challenge to anybody who's of an Awami League background, who says that they're a Muslim, the next time you pray to Allah, ask yourself, am I praying to Allah today, doing sajda to Him, at the same time supporting people who are trying to destroy the same religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And ask that question, and ask and challenge these people. I think the way out of this situation in the future is that the religious parties, both Jamaat Islami and the others, Jamiat Ulama, whatever, have to engage with the masses. You cannot work within your own little cocoon and circle. You cannot have an economic system that only benefits your party people, right? Dr. Yunus is a hero in Bangladesh. Why? Because he does business with the poor, okay? Even Hasina doesn't like him. She's tried to undermine him, all the rest of it. Why can't our religious people be like Dr. Yunus? Why can't they be heroes of Bangladesh? Why can't they share the economic might of the Islamic Bank of Bangladesh, the Jamaat Islami's economic power in Bangladesh? Why aren't the poor people benefiting from it? Why aren't the poor people coming out? If they try to hang Dr. Yunus tomorrow, the poor of Bangladesh will come out and burn the country down. okay? Because he's done something from them. And we need to learn from these people, that we need to come out and engage with the masses in Bangladesh, like Maulana Bashani did, like Sheikh Mujib did, and get away from the politics of hatred and deal with this secular problem once and for all. And it's going to be done by re-owning and retaking charge of the educational system, getting rid of these absolutely atheist and, you know, the current education minister in Bangladesh, he's supposed to be an expert on education. So I asked some of his supporters, so does he have a Harvard PhD on like education, or has he got an Oxbridge degree, or has he gone to like New Zealand or Scandinavia to study their innovative primary education systems? He hasn't. He's a communist, lived in Bangladesh all his life. The furthest he's been to study is probably Moscow. What's he going to bring to a country like Bangladesh? What vision is he going to bring? The world's moved on 200 years ahead of communism. Go and look at the communist countries. These secularists want to impose extreme socialism in Bangladesh. Just go and look at the communist countries, how far behind they are. Okay? And that's my message to those who support Awami League blindly. Wake up, open your eyes, and, you know, just pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings peace to Bangladesh, and to the peace to the people of Bangladesh, and to the whole region. You know, we've separated from Pakistan, but Pakistan ain't any better than us, and it's not any more peaceful. You know, there's people getting killed in Pakistan every day in the name of Islam, and that needs to stop as well. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم.
من يجيب العبد أبدى السوء أوارا، ومن يجزي على المعروف جنات وأن